My father looked me dead in the eyes and told me I was the stupidest mistake he'd ever made. He said, I should take my pregnancy and get the hell out of his house. 1 hour to pack 21 years of my life. And my mother just sat there, staring at her mashed potatoes like they held answers to questions she was too afraid to ask. 9 years later, I stood in my home office, overlooking my 6-acre estate in Ridgewood, New Jersey, when security called. An older couple at my gate claimed to be my parents. For the first time in almost a decade, I smiled thinking about Trevor and Yolanda Wexford, because the stupid mistake they threw away was about to decide if they were worth a conversation. My name is Celeste Wexford. I was 21 when my world collapsed. This is how I built a new one from the wreckage. Growing up in Ridgewood, I was never the daughter Trevor Wexford wanted. He owned a construction company and made his disappointment clear from day one. He wanted a son. He got me. So he pretended the difference didn't exist. While other girls learned to braid hair and picked prom dresses, I changed tires, hauled materials at construction sites, played softball instead of the ballet I secretly wanted. My father had a plan. I'd be the son he never had, take over Wexford Construction, continue his legacy. Being a girl was just an inconvenience he ignored. I got good at ignoring it too. Business degree at Rutgers because he expected it. Straight A's because less meant lectures about wasted potential. I became a perfectionist, chasing approval that never came. I can rebuild a carburetor with my eyes closed, but can't French braid to save my life. Some education. My mother, Yolanda, was different. Not cruel, just absent. A ghost who never disagreed with Trevor, never defended me, never made waves. I thought she was weak. Later, I realized she'd chosen comfort over courage long ago. Then I met Tyler Webb. At 21, desperate to be loved as a woman instead of Trevor's defective son replacement, I fell for a pharmaceutical sales rep with a smile that could sell you anything. Tyler talked about marriage, kids, white picket fences. After a lifetime of not being enough, he made me feel like everything. 8 months in, I got pregnant. Tyler seemed happy. Baby names, nursery colors, teaching our kid to ride bikes. I believed him. Then he got distant, busy with work, traveling more. I pushed down worries because I needed the fairy tale real. My mistake was telling my parents. Sunday dinner. Tyler canceled last minute. Work emergency. So I sat alone across from Trevor and Yolanda and said it. I'm pregnant. My hands went ice cold, heartbeat in my throat. Trevor's face shifted, confusion, disbelief, then something cold I'd never seen. Yolanda froze, fork halfway to her mouth. He didn't yell at first. That quiet, controlled voice was worse. Plans for me. Taking over the company. How an unmarried, pregnant daughter destroyed his reputation. 21 years molding me into something useful. This was how I repaid him. Then he exploded. Chair crashed backward. You're just a stupid mistake from my past. I should have tried for a son instead of wasting time on you. Get out. 1 hour. I looked at my mother, begging with my eyes. She stared at her mashed potatoes. I packed 2 suitcases, hands shaking. 21 years into whatever fit. Mom didn't come to my room. Didn't help. Didn't say goodbye. TV downstairs. Game show music. While I erased myself. In my car, I called Tyler. No answer. Again. Voicemail. 3 hours in a dark parking lot, watching my phone like it held my future. His text. I can't do this. Sorry. Don't contact me again. 6 words after 8 months of promises. I called 40 times. He blocked me. Next morning, I drove to his apartment. A woman answered. Pretty, engagement ring, catching light. Lauren Anderson. Engaged to Tyler Webb for 2 years. While he whispered promises to me, he went home to her. I was the other woman in a story I didn't know I was in. Tyler appeared behind her. No charm left. Handle your problem. Door slammed. I should have seen it. He took trips to exotic locations, but never came back with a tan or a single photo. I thought he was private. He was just a professional liar with a frequent flyer account. 21 years old, pregnant, disowned, dumped in 24 hours, $847 in savings. Trevor poisoned every relative against me. My aunt tried sending money. He threatened to cut her off. Mom snuck $500 through a cousin. Trevor took her credit cards as punishment. Boarding house in Newark, $60 a week, smelled like mildew and broken dreams. 3 jobs. Bakery at 4 a.m., covered in flour, and the kind of exhaustion that seeps into your bones. The owner, Mrs. Chen, was kind enough not to ask questions when she found me crying in the walk-in freezer during my break. Afternoons at the dry cleaner, standing on swollen feet, pressing shirts for businessmen who probably earned more in an hour than I made in a week. Evenings at the call center until 10 p.m., getting screamed at by strangers who thought I was personally responsible for their billing errors. I had 2 pairs of work pants. I rotated them, washing one in the sink each night while wearing the other. Sometimes I was so tired I'd fall asleep on the bus between jobs and miss my stop. The other women at the boarding house, most of them were like me, hanging on by their fingernails. We shared food when someone's paycheck came up short. We babysat for each other. We didn't ask too many questions because we all had stories we didn't want to tell. At 6 months pregnant, I collapsed at the call center, just crumpled between the cubicles like a puppet whose strings got cut. I woke up in a hospital with a doctor telling me I was killing myself and my baby. "You have to slow down," he said, "or you're going to lose her." Her. I was having a daughter. I quit 2 jobs, survived on 1 income, food stamps, and anxiety that felt like a constant weight on my chest. Iris was born in April, named for the goddess of rainbows, the only color left in my gray world. The delivery room was cold and bright, and I was alone. No family in the waiting room, no father pacing the halls, no grandparents eager to hold their first grandchild. Just me, exhausted and terrified and feeling a love so fierce it actually hurt. When the nurse placed her in my arms, this tiny, perfect human, who had done nothing wrong except exist, I made a promise. I whispered it right there, my lips against her soft head. "You will never, ever feel unwanted. Not for a single day of your life." The nurse asked if my family was coming. "They're traveling," I said. Easier than explaining they'd thrown me away? Like garbage. Meanwhile, Trevor was busy erasing me. He told everyone in Ridgewood I was troubled, making poor choices. He never said the words directly. He was too smart for that. But he implied enough. Let people's imaginations fill in the ugly details. Old family friends crossed the street when they saw me. College classmates stopped returning texts. I discovered through a cousin's accidental Facebook post that I'd been cropped out of every family photo in their house. 21 years of birthdays, Christmas mornings, graduations. I no longer existed in any of them. It was like I'd never been born. Rock bottom taught me things business school never could. How to stretch $12 across 7 days of groceries. 47 different ways to cook rice and beans. How to ask for the manager when my YC benefits got denied. How to swallow pride and accept charity from strangers. To this day, I'm worth millions. I still can't look at a kidney bean without my left eye twitching. But my father's rage wasn't the deepest wound. My mother's silence was. Okay. When Iris was 4 months old, I wrote Yolanda a letter. sat at my tiny kitchen table after Iris fell asleep and poured everything onto paper. Told her about her granddaughter, how she had my eyes, how she smiled in her sleep, how she grabbed my finger with this grip that felt like hope. I begged my mother to meet her, to be part of her life, to choose love over fear just this once. I included 3 photos of Iris, one where she was sleeping, one mid-laugh, one where she was looking right at the camera like she could see into the future. 2 weeks later, Yolanda's response came. 1 paragraph, written in her perfect cursive on cream-colored stationery. Your father thinks it's best if we move on. I hope you understand. I'm sorry. Sorry. That single word, so small, so weak, so completely useless. It was worse than silence. At least silence didn't pretend to care. At least silence didn't wrap cruelty in politeness and mail it with a stamp. I put that letter in a drawer. Sometimes, on the hardest days, I'd take it out and read it again. Remind myself exactly who Yolanda Wexford was when it mattered. And Iris's first birthday fell on a Tuesday. I couldn't afford to take the day off work, so we celebrated that evening in our tiny apartment. I'd bought a cake from the discount rack at the grocery store, chocolate with a dent in the frosting where someone had probably dropped it. 1 balloon from the dollar store, already losing helium. I'd made Iris a onesie that said 1 in fabric paint because I couldn't afford the cute ones at the baby store. We sat on the floor of our cramped living room. I sang happy birthday while Iris clapped her hands, not understanding, but delighted anyway. The cake tasted like survival, like every impossible day I'd fought through to get to this moment. But when I looked at my daughter, her huge, gummy smile, her joy that didn't know anything about cruel grandfathers or absent fathers or mothers who chose comfort over their children, something shifted deep in my chest. I realized I was standing at a crossroads. One path: spend the rest of my life drowning in resentment. Replay Trevor's words on an endless loop. Let him live rent-free in my head, dictating my worth, defining my story. The other path? Build something. Something so big, so undeniably mine, so successful, that his opinion would become background noise, irrelevant, powerless. I've never been good at drowning. That night, after Iris fell asleep, I sat at my kitchen table with a notebook, started writing down ideas, skills I had, things I was good at, possibilities. I didn't know yet that I'd find real estate. Didn't know I'd discover I had a gift for seeing potential where others saw decay. Didn't know that 9 years later, I'd own the kind of empire Trevor could never build. But I knew one thing with absolute certainty. I was done being the mistake. I was going to be the reckoning. The turning point came from an unexpected source, a tough, widowed 68-year-old woman named Miriam Castagnos, who ran a struggling property management company and had zero patience for excuses. I got an entry-level job at her firm when Iris was 18 months old. Filing paperwork, answering phones, making coffee that Miriam always complained was too weak. 22 years old, living in a boarding house, taking my daughter to a daycare that smelled like industrial cleaner and graham crackers. But Miriam noticed things. She noticed I stayed late without being asked. She noticed I caught errors in contracts that had slipped past everyone else. She noticed I had the kind of hunger that comes from having nothing and everything to prove. One afternoon, she called me into her cluttered office, papers stacked everywhere, coffee rings on every surface, and asked me a question that changed my life. What do you want, Celeste? Really want? I didn't hesitate. To never be powerless again. She nodded like that was the only acceptable answer and started teaching me everything she knew. Miriam had built her company from nothing after her husband died, leaving her with 3 kids and a mountain of debt. She understood survival. She understood what it meant to be underestimated, dismissed, told you couldn't do something just because of who you were. And she saw something in me I couldn't see in myself yet. "You've got the eye," she told me one day, tapping her temple. "You can look at a broken thing and see what it could be. That's rare. That's valuable. Don't waste it." I discovered I had a gift for real estate. Not the flashy sales pitch kind. I was too blunt for that, too impatient with bullshit. But I could look at a neglected property, a building everyone else saw as a lost cause, and see exactly what it could become. I saw potential where others saw decay. My first real negotiation was convincing my boarding house landlord not to evict me by offering to personally fix the building's broken mailboxes. I spent an entire weekend with a screwdriver, a YouTube tutorial, and more curse words than I'm proud of. But when I finished, I realized something important. I could sell anything to anyone if I believed in the value I was offering. That busted mailbox situation was my business school. I got my real estate license while working full-time and raising Iris alone. Studied at 2 a.m, textbooks spread across my kitchen table, my daughter sleeping in the next room. I drank enough coffee to fuel a small spacecraft, failed my first practice exam, and cried in the bathroom for 20 minutes. Then I dried my eyes and studied harder. When I passed that licensing exam, I held the certificate in my hands and sobbed. Not sad tears, survivor tears. The kind that come when you realize you might actually make it after all. Top. My first sale was a tiny condo that had been sitting on the market for 8 months. Nobody wanted it. The location was weird, wedged between a laundromat and a tattoo parlor. The layout was awkward. A galley kitchen that barely fit one person, a bathroom with a shower stall so small you had to exhale to turn around. And it smelled vaguely of cats and regret. I staged it myself with furniture from thrift stores and tricks I'd learned from home improvement shows. Painted the walls a warm cream color that made the space feel bigger. Hung mirrors strategically, added plants. And I baked cookies before every showing because I'd read somewhere that the smell makes people feel at home. It was probably manipulation, but it was also delicious manipulation. That condo sold in 3 weeks. My commission was $3,200, more money than I'd seen in 2 years of struggling. I remember depositing that check and just staring at my bank balance, watching the numbers change, feeling something I hadn't felt since before Trevor's words destroyed everything. I felt hope. Miriam promoted me, gave me more listings, started treating me less like an employee and more like a protege. I absorbed everything she taught me like a sponge that had been thirsty for decades. When Iris was 3, she asked me why we didn't have a backyard. She'd seen one on a TV show and wanted to know why our apartment building only had a parking lot. I knelt down to her level and made a promise. Someday we're going to have the biggest backyard in all of New Jersey. She drew me a picture that night, a house way too big for the paper, with a yard that took up most of the page, and 2 stick figures holding hands, me and her. I put that drawing in my wallet and carried it every single day. But success doesn't come without setbacks, and I struggled constantly with a voice in my head that sounded exactly like Trevor. Every time I reached for something bigger, that voice told me I was just a stupid mistake. Every time I doubted myself, his words echoed through my thoughts like a curse I couldn't break. Miriam noticed one afternoon when I hesitated on a deal I should have taken. She pulled me aside and shared her own story. How her husband's family told her she'd fail, how business associates laughed at her, how banks refused to give her loans because she was a woman alone. "You know what I learned?" she said, looking me dead in the eyes. "The best revenge isn't proving them wrong. The best revenge is forgetting they exist while you build your kingdom." That became my mantra. When Iris was 4, Tyler decided to resurface. He found me on social media. I'd finally created a professional Facebook page for work. His message was all false concern and carefully worded questions. Hey, Celeste. Heard you're doing better. I've been thinking about you and our daughter. Maybe we should talk about Iris's future. Translation: he'd heard I wasn't destitute anymore and wanted to either ease his guilt or see if there was money to be had. I screenshot every message, saved them in a folder labeled evidence, and never responded. Let him wonder. Let him wait forever. But here's something funny. Lauren, his ex-fiancée, reached out separately around the same time. Apparently, Tyler had eventually cheated on her too. Leopards don't change their spots. They just find new victims. She was happily remarried now to a decent man and wanted to apologize for how everything went down, even though none of it was her fault. We ended up becoming friends. Strange how that works. The people you should hate sometimes become the ones who understand you best. By the time Iris started first grade, I'd saved $180,000. I had a plan, a reputation, and a future that had nothing to do with Trevor or Yolanda Wexford. Through industry connections, I started hearing whispers about Wexford construction. Trevor had overextended during a building boom, taken bad loans with worse terms, and his company was slowly bleeding out. His pride wouldn't let him admit it. They'd had to let go of their housekeeper, stop taking their annual vacation to Cape Cod. Small cracks in the facade that only someone watching closely would notice. I noticed. But I didn't feel satisfaction. Not yet. I was too busy building my own empire. Then came my first major deal. I was 27 years old. I'd found an abandoned warehouse in Jersey City that I knew could be converted into something special. Loft apartments with exposed brick, high ceilings, industrial chic that young professionals would pay premium prices for. I partnered with a developer I'd worked with before, a guy named Jackson Hayes. He seemed solid, experienced, had a good track record. I invested $150,000 of my savings, almost everything I had. The timeline was 18 months. The potential profit was huge. 6 months in, Jackson disappeared. Not just ghosted, disappeared. Stopped answering calls, stopped showing up to the site, vanished like smoke. And he'd taken most of the money with him. The project ground to a halt. Contractors went unpaid. Liens piled up on the property. I faced lawsuits from suppliers who thought I was in on the scam. I was down to $8,000 in savings. Everything I'd built over 6 years. Gone. I sat in that empty warehouse one night, Iris asleep at home with a babysitter I could barely afford. The space was half finished, exposed wiring hanging from the ceiling, construction debris everywhere. My phone kept buzzing with calls from angry contractors I couldn't pay, and for the first time since Trevor kicked me out, I thought, maybe he was right. Maybe I am just a stupid mistake. Maybe I'd been fooling myself, thinking I could be something more. I could feel myself standing on the edge of giving up. It would be so easy. Walk away, file for bankruptcy, go back to working for someone else. Stop reaching for things that were clearly beyond my grasp. Then my phone buzzed again. Not an angry contractor this time. A text from Iris's daycare with a photo they'd taken that afternoon. My daughter painting at an easel, tongue sticking out in concentration, wearing a smock covered in rainbow colors. The caption, Iris says she's painting your new office. I stared at that photo for a long time. Go. Miriam found me there an hour later. I don't know how she knew where I was, but she showed up with 2 coffees and sat down on a pile of drywall next to me. You planning to quit? She asked. I'm planning to survive, I said. Those aren't the same thing. She handed me a coffee. You don't quit when you're this close. Close to what? Bankruptcy? Close to learning the most important lesson. She sipped her coffee, looking around the gutted space. Success isn't avoiding failure, Celeste. It's how you rebuild after it. Anyone can succeed when things go right. But can you succeed after they go wrong? That's what separates the real builders from the pretenders. I took a second mortgage on the tiny condo I'd bought 2 years earlier, my first real property purchase. Worked 80-hour weeks, found a new contractor, a guy named James Sullivan, who took a chance on me when he had every reason not to. Negotiated with every supplier personally, explaining what happened, offering payment plans, promising future business. Some told me to get lost. Some believed me. For 8 months, I lived like I was back in that boarding house. Rice and beans for dinner. No new clothes. Every penny went to the warehouse. My eyes started twitching every time I saw a kidney bean. Some traumas really do stay with you. The project took 2 years total instead of 18 months. When it finally finished, I didn't make the massive profit I'd originally projected. I broke even with a small gain. But I proved something more important than profit. I could survive failure. When someone tried to destroy me, I could rebuild. My reputation stayed intact. Actually, it improved. People in the industry talked about how I'd handled the Jackson Hayes situation with integrity, with grit, with refusal to quit. That warehouse became my calling card. Not because it made me rich, but because it proved I was someone who finished what she started. When I turned 28, Miriam announced she was retiring. 68 years of working, fighting, and proving everyone wrong, she said. I've earned my beach. Before she left, she offered me her entire client list at a price so low it was practically a gift. I tried to argue, tried to pay her what it was actually worth. She just looked at me with those sharp eyes that had seen everything. This is my investment in the future. I want to watch what you build, and I can't do that if you're broke from overpaying me. Then she handed me a bottle of champagne. Don't open this until you make your first $1 million, she said. I still have that bottle. I'm saving it for something even bigger now. I launched Phoenix Rise Properties from a tiny office in Hoboken. 1 desk, 1 chair, ambition that exceeded the square footage by several orders of magnitude. The name wasn't subtle. I was a phoenix, I had burned, and I had risen. Anyone who had a problem with that could take it up with my profit margins. My specialty became finding neglected properties in neighborhoods about to transform. Buildings everyone else dismissed as lost causes. I'd buy them, restore them with care and intelligence, and sell them for considerably more. That gift Miriam saw in me, seeing potential in broken things, became my superpower. My first major success came when I was 29, a condemned apartment building in Jersey City. The city was literally about to demolish it. I saw what no one else did: location in an up-and-coming neighborhood, solid bones beneath the decay, potential for luxury condos that would attract young professionals fleeing Manhattan's insane prices. 18 months of renovation. Permits, contractors, endless inspections, problems that emerged like monsters from the walls. But when I finished, I had 12 luxury units with exposed brick, floor-to-ceiling windows, and finishes that screamed quality without screaming price tag. They sold out in 6 weeks. My profit, $1.2 million. I sat in my new office, a real office now, with a second desk and a part-time assistant, staring at the numbers, trying to make them feel real. 8 years ago, I'd been eating dented birthday cake in a boarding house, wondering if I could afford diapers. Now, I was a millionaire. Not inherited wealth, not family money, not Trevor's construction empire handed down. Mine. Every dollar earned through work and will, and refusing to quit when quitting, would have been so much easier. I called Iris into the office that day. She was 8 years old, missing her 2 front teeth, wearing a shirt with a unicorn on it. "Baby," I said, "we're going to look at houses this weekend. Big houses, with backyards." Her eyes went huge. Like in my picture? Exactly like in your picture. I kept a deliberately low profile during those years. Phoenix Rise properties on everything. Rarely my personal name, no social media, no flashy displays. My office was in Hoboken, far from Ridgewood and people who used to know me. The transformation from struggling single mother to real estate developer still surprised me sometimes. I went from 2 pairs of work pants to a closet organized by season. I still kept those original pants, though, framed in my closet like art. Some people hang diplomas. I hang polyester blend reminders. When Iris was 7, she asked about grandparents. Friends at school talked about visiting grandma, getting spoiled with cookies. I gave her simplified truth. Sometimes adults hurt people they should love. My parents made that choice. She shrugged. That's their loss. You're the best mom ever. I cried in the shower that night. Happy and sad tears washing away the last hope that my parents might change. Around this time, I met Russell Okonkwo, an architect, 34, divorced with a young son. We met at a conference. He asked me to coffee. I said no. Month later, no. 6 months later, yes. Tyler Webb hadn't just broken my heart. He'd broken my ability to trust. Every compliment felt like a con's opening move. Every promise sounded like a lie. Russell didn't try to scale my walls. He just showed up consistently, respected boundaries, proved through actions he was exactly who he appeared to be. Years of friendship before anything more. By the time Iris was 8, we were together. He'd earned it the hard way, the only way that matters. Kinkab. I kept tabs on Wexford construction through public records. Trevor had lost major contracts, taken a second mortgage on my childhood home. His pride wouldn't let him admit he was struggling. I felt nothing. Just distant acknowledgement, like reading a stranger's misfortune. Then I saw the listing. Thornfield Estate. 6 bedrooms, 4 acres, historic Ridgewood property. 2 years on market. Ambitious price. Significant renovation needs. 3 miles from my parents' house. Also the best school district for Iris. Incredible bones. I could see exactly what it could become. I told myself it was good investment. Iris deserved that backyard I'd promised. Ridgewood schools mattered. All true. But I smiled when I signed those papers. Some purchases are practical, some are poetic. This was both. We moved in 2 weeks before Iris's 9th birthday. I was 30, self-made, successful beyond imagination. A daughter who knew she was loved, a partner who'd earned trust, a home entirely mine. Ridgewood is small. Secrets don't last. Whispers started within days. Trevor Wexford's daughter is back, living in Thornfield Estate, $8 million. Can you believe it? Everyone knew. Everyone except Trevor and Yolanda, existing in their bubble of denial. Yolanda found out first. Her bridge club. Some friend asked if she was excited about Celeste back in town, about access to her granddaughter. Yolanda went pale, excused herself. Told Trevor that night. Trevor didn't believe it. Researched Phoenix Rise properties obsessively. Found the portfolio, awards, photographs of me at conferences with mayors and developers. His stupid mistake was now worth more than he'd ever be. I imagined his face. Confusion, denial, recognition. Finally, desperation. Saturday morning. I was reviewing development plans when security called. Ms. Wexford, there's an older couple at the gate. They claim to be your parents. My heart stopped, then raced. I looked at Iris in the garden, happy and innocent. The people who rejected her before birth were at our gate. Tell them I'll be there shortly. I made them wait 47 minutes. Some things you earn through patience, others through making people wait. Yeah. When I walked down, I saw them clearly for the first time in 9 years. Trevor had aged badly. Stress, written in deep lines, gray skin. Weight loss from worry. Expensive but dated suit, frayed cuffs. Yolanda stood behind him, smaller, frailer. Completely gray hair, she'd stopped caring about appearances. Red eyes from crying. Trevor tried to smile. Most pathetic thing I'd ever witnessed. He started talking immediately. Family, misunderstandings, water under bridges. How he'd always loved me, really. How proud he was of my success. Proud. The man who called me worthless now claimed pride. Yolanda said nothing, staring at the estate, evidence of the life her daughter built without her. I let him finish his rehearsed speech. Do you remember what you said? My voice was calm. 9 years ago? Celeste, You called me a stupid mistake. Said you should have tried for a son instead. I was angry. You gave me 1 hour. And Mom, you sat there, stared at your mashed potatoes, and said nothing. Yolanda's eyes filled with tears. I wrote you a letter when Iris was born, sent pictures, begged you to meet her. I looked at my mother. You sent 1 paragraph. You said Dad thought it best you moved on. You said sorry. Trevor's facade cracked. Wexford Construction is bankrupt. We're losing the house. Everything's gone. His voice broke. I need help. You have to help us. Help us. We're your parents. I almost laughed. You are my parents, which means you had 18 years to show me what that meant. 9 months while I was pregnant. 9 years raising your granddaughter. You had every chance to choose me. He tried anger, raised his voice about everything he'd done for me. It bounced off like rain off glass. Then guilt. They were old, nowhere to go. I was their only child. I felt nothing. Finally, something almost like genuine remorse. Voice cracking, eyes wet. I was wrong. Biggest mistake of my life. I've known it for years, but I was too proud to admit it. For 1 second, my heart wavered. Then he added, But you owe us this, Celeste, after everything we gave you. Gone. He still didn't understand. I don't owe you anything. The debt was settled 9 years ago when I walked out with 2 suitcases and $847. Yolanda spoke for the first time. Can I see Iris? Just once? Then words rushed out like they'd been trapped for years. I wanted to leave him. After that dinner, I packed a bag, got as far as my sister's house. I stared. But I was scared. I'd never worked, had nothing, didn't know how to survive without him. So I went back. I chose comfort. Tears streamed. I've hated myself every day since. I see you in my dreams, standing at that door with your suitcases, begging me with your eyes, and I just sat there. She took a shuddering breath. I don't deserve forgiveness. I'm not asking. I just wanted you to know I failed you. I chose wrong, and I haven't stopped regretting it. Gag. I looked at her for a long moment. This changed nothing. Didn't erase 9 years of silence. Didn't bring back nights I cried myself to sleep. But it meant something. Not enough, but something. You could have left. You didn't. That was your choice. Every single day for 9 years. I looked at both of them. This is my choice. I hope you find peace, but not here. Not at my gate, not in my home, not in my life. Please, Yolanda whispered. Just let me see her once. My heart wavered. Then I remembered the letter. That single word. Sorry. Iris doesn't know you exist. She's never felt unwanted. Keeping it that way is the kindest thing I can give my daughter. But she will never know what it feels like to be thrown away. She will never beg for connection and receive nothing. That's my legacy, not money. Protection from people who only want her now because it's convenient. Yolanda's face crumpled. She turned into Trevor's chest, sobbing. They left slowly, hoping I'd change my mind. I didn't. I watched them walk to their car, old Honda Civic, 12 years of deferred maintenance, not the Mercedes Trevor used to drive. They drove away. I stood until they disappeared. I felt lighter with every inch of distance. Iris ran up minutes later, Russell's son chasing behind. Who were those people? I looked at my daughter. Beautiful, happy, confident, never called a mistake, never made to feel she wasn't enough. Nobody important. I meant it. Mag. That evening, Russell joined us for dinner in the garden. Iris showed him her latest drawing, updated version from when she was 3. Our family. Our house. Big backyard with trees and the new swing set. 3 figures holding hands. Russell's son beside them. Family built through choice, not blood. I looked at my life. The daughter I raised through hardest years. The man who earned trust through patience. The home entirely mine, paid for with my own money. Not a single piece from Trevor or Yolanda Wexford. Exactly the way it should be. Later, after Iris was asleep, I stood in my office looking out at 6 acres. I opened the drawer with 2 things I'd kept for years. Iris's original drawing of our dream house, and my mother's letter with that single word, sorry. I looked at both. Then I kept the drawing and threw the letter away. Next morning, I pulled out the champagne Miriam gave me years ago. Don't open until you make your first million. I'd made several million, but I'd been waiting for the right moment. The moment that meant more than money. I called Russell, Lauren Anderson, and Miriam. I'm opening the champagne. About damn time, Miriam said. What did it? Another huge deal? Better. I finally stopped carrying the past. That night, we toasted. Not to money, not to revenge, not to proving anyone wrong. We toasted to freedom. Those who throw away their children don't get to claim their success. I rose from the ashes because I had to. Because I had a daughter who needed to see that strength looks like getting back up. Because I refused to let Trevor Wexford's words become my truth. My parents never even tried to strike the match. Standing in the empire I built, with people I chose around me and a daughter who knows she is loved, I realize that's exactly why I succeeded. Not despite their rejection. Because of my refusal to let it define me. I am Celeste Wexford. I am not a mistake. I am the woman who turned pain into power, rejection into resilience, and cruelty into courage. And that is the only legacy that matters.